The silence in the grand conference room was broken only by the hum of the projector and the condescending tone of my manager, Valerie Hayes. She stood at the podium, presenting Project Nova, our company's most critical initiative, a project I had poured months of relentless work into, only for her to publicly claim all the credit. Then, her eyes, cold and sharp, flicked towards me, sitting quietly at the back. "Some people," she announced, her voice dripping with disdain, "just don't have the strategic mind for high-level thinking. They're good at the busy work, but utterly unqualified for innovation." She paused, letting her gaze linger, making it clear she spoke of me. My colleagues shifted uncomfortably, a collective breath held in the room. Valerie then assigned me an impossible task: to review and validate a complex algorithmic structure of Project Nova by tomorrow morning, implying it was a minor detail, but knowing it was designed to expose my incompetence. She had no idea that in setting me up to fail, she had just handed me the key to her own spectacular downfall. My name is Chloe Miller. After a challenging period in my life, a family crisis that left me drained both emotionally and financially, I found a new start as a senior analyst at Ascent Innovations. I was eager to prove myself, to build a stable future and reclaim a sense of control. But my manager, Valerie Hayes, quickly shattered that hope. She was a master of manipulation, a credit stealer, and a relentless micromanager who thrived on belittling her team. Valerie saw me as a quiet, easy target, ripe for humiliation, someone whose past struggles made her seem desperate and compliant. She never imagined that her cruel mockery and impossible demands would awaken a steely resolve within me, a determination to expose her true nature, not just to my colleagues, but to the entire company. This is the story of how an unqualified idiot found the hidden flaw in Valerie's perfect plan and turned her public humiliation into a devastating, career-ending revelation. My professional journey before Ascent Innovations was marked by dedication and quiet success. I had spent over a decade in data analytics, specializing in complex system architectures and predictive modeling. My previous role at a smaller, more collaborative firm allowed me to thrive, building intricate solutions and earning a reputation for meticulous attention to detail and an uncanny ability to spot hidden patterns. Life, however, threw an unexpected curveball a year ago. A sudden, severe illness in my family drained our savings and forced me to step back from my demanding, high-paying role. When things stabilized, I desperately needed a new start, a secure position that would allow me to rebuild our financial stability. Every paycheck mattered, and the pressure was immense. I often found myself working late into the night, the glow of my laptop screen a constant companion, driven by the quiet desperation for a fresh start. Ascent Innovations, a rapidly growing tech company known for its ambitious projects, seemed like the perfect opportunity. The hiring manager, a kind-faced man named David Chin, had been understanding of my gap in employment and impressed by my resume. I joined as a senior analyst, a slight step down from my previous director-level position, but I was ready to embrace the challenge, eager to contribute and prove my worth. At first, the team seemed welcoming, the environment dynamic. But within days, I was introduced to my direct manager, Valerie Hayes, and the true nature of my new role began to unfold. Valerie was charismatic on the surface, a master of corporate jargon and dazzling presentations. She was ambitious, driven, and fiercely protective of her image. However, beneath that polished exterior lay a deep insecurity that manifested as relentless micromanagement and a burning need to control every detail. She rarely delegated without heavy oversight, and when success was achieved, she was quick to claim all the credit. Failures, however, were swiftly attributed to her team. She had a habit of sending emails at 10 p.m. on a Friday, expecting immediate responses, just to prove her perceived dominance, often copying senior leadership to highlight her own dedication. Valerie had a particular disdain for anyone she perceived as too quiet or too technical, often making subtle, disparaging remarks about those who preferred deep analytical work to flashy presentations. My calm demeanor and focus on data precision seemed to irk her. She began to assign me tasks that were beneath my skill level, then criticize my methods. I'd watch her, pen tapping impatiently as I tried to explain complex data, only for her to cut me off, asserting her own, often incorrect, conclusions. I quickly realized her apparent confidence was a facade. She was more interested in appearing intelligent than in truly understanding the technical complexities of our projects. Her latest obsession was Project Nova, a massive, company-defining initiative aimed at developing a revolutionary AI-driven data optimization platform. Valerie had positioned herself as the project lead, constantly trumpeting its potential and her visionary leadership to senior executives. In reality, she delegated most of the core technical work to her team, including myself, then simply polished the presentations and took all the accolades. I, along with a few other long-suffering colleagues, knew that while Project Nova looked impressive on paper, its underlying architecture, largely designed by a previous, quickly dismissed team, had some glaring flaws that Valerie, in her eagerness to rush to market and claim victory, was completely overlooking. My quiet warnings were always dismissed as overly cautious or lacking faith in the vision. She would often wave a dismissive hand, saying, "That's just an analyst's nitpick, Chloe. We're talking big picture here." I began to meticulously document every interaction, every dismissed warning, every hurried decision related to Project Nova, not out of malice, but out of a professional instinct to protect the company and, increasingly, myself. The stage was set for a confrontation, one Valerie would initiate and one I was quietly preparing to win. The moment Valerie truly crossed the line, cementing my resolve for retribution, happened during a crucial company-wide progress review for Project Nova. The entire senior leadership team was present, along with key stakeholders from various departments. Valerie, looking resplendent in a power suit, delivered a flawless presentation, filled with dazzling graphics and optimistic projections. She painted a picture of seamless progress, conveniently omitting any mention of the team's immense efforts or the underlying technical challenges. She hogged the limelight, absorbing every compliment. Towards the end, the head of product, a sharp woman named Sofia Rodriguez, asked a specific, technical question about the data integrity protocols of Project Nova's core algorithm. It was a detail I had painstakingly worked on and had previously flagged to Valerie as potentially problematic due to its complex dependencies. Valerie, caught off guard by the technical depth of the question, visibly fumbled. Her eyes darted around, searching for a lifeline. They landed on me, sitting quietly in my chair. A cruel, predatory smile spread across her face. "Chloe," she announced, her voice loud and clear, drawing everyone's attention. "Perhaps you can enlighten Sophia on the intricacies of the data integrity. After all, that's where the analysts dwell. Though, to be honest," she added, her voice dripping with condescension, "sometimes I wonder if some people, no matter how much they specialize, just don't have the strategic mind for high-level thinking. They're good at the busy work, but utterly unqualified for innovation." The insult hung in the air, sharp and deliberate. My face flushed, a burning heat spread across my cheeks, but I clenched my jaw, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing me react. My hands, hidden beneath the table, balled into tight fists. The room went silent, an uncomfortable tension gripping every person present. Sophia looked visibly uncomfortable, her gaze flicking between me and Valerie, a hint of concern in her eyes. Valerie had publicly belittled my intelligence and questioned my professional capability in front of our entire leadership. The humiliation was profound, cutting deeper than any previous slight, designed to crush my spirit. Then she pressed on, sealing my fate and, unknowingly, her own. She picked up a thick stack of printed code from the table, a prop more than a working document, and threw it lightly onto the desk in front of me. In fact, Chloe, she continued, to ensure everything is truly robust, I want you to perform a full, independent code review of the Project Nova core algorithm. Focus specifically on the data integrity protocols. I need that report on my desk, with a comprehensive list of any and all potential vulnerabilities, by 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. No excuses. The task was impossible. It was Friday afternoon. The core algorithm was tens of thousands of lines of complex, uncommented code, and a full review would take days, if not weeks, for a single person. She was setting me up to fail, to publicly confirm her assessment of me as unqualified. She expected me to crumble, to admit defeat, to apologize for my perceived shortcomings. But as I met her gaze, a cold, unyielding resolve settled in my stomach. The anger was there, hot and sharp, burning like a coal, but it was quickly replaced by a calm, calculating focus. My hands, hidden beneath the table, remained tightly clenched. She had underestimated me. She had pushed me too far. Valerie Hayes had just made her biggest mistake. She wanted a report by 8 a.m. She would get a report. One that would expose not my incompetence, but hers. The moment I left that humiliating meeting, the anger solidified into a chilling determination. Valerie wanted a report by 8 a.m. She would get it. But it wouldn't be the report she expected. I locked myself in my home office, fueled by black coffee and a burning desire for retribution. My fingers flew across the keyboard, eyes scanning lines of code with a predatory focus. I wasn't just reviewing code, I was hunting for the definitive proof of Valerie's gross negligence and the disaster she was unknowingly orchestrating. As I delved into the labyrinthine lines of Project Nova's core algorithm, I immediately caught anomalies. It wasn't a minor bug or a non-existent flaw as Valerie had implied. It was a fundamental, catastrophic design flaw in the data integrity protocols. The system, designed to handle massive influxes of sensitive user data, had a critical vulnerability that would not only corrupt data over time, but also leave it wide open to external breaches. This wasn't a theoretical risk, it was a ticking time bomb. This flaw, if left unaddressed, could compromise millions of user records, lead to massive financial losses, and irrevocably damage Ascent Innovation's reputation. Valerie, in her eagerness to rush Project Nova to market and claim victory, had either completely missed it or, worse, deliberately ignored it. I meticulously documented every line of problematic code, every logical error, every potential point of failure. I ran dozens of simulations, generating irrefutable evidence of the data corruption and vulnerability, capturing screenshots, and recording step-by-step breakdowns. The scale of the problem was immense, far beyond what Valerie had vaguely brushed off as analyst busywork. My hands flew across the keyboard, driven by adrenaline and a growing sense of vindication. By dawn, the detailed report was complete. I had not just identified a flaw, I had uncovered a systemic disaster waiting to happen, directly attributable to the rushed, superficial leadership of Valerie Hayes. She remained completely oblivious, probably dreaming of her impending accolades for Project Nova. Over the next few days, Valerie, still basking in her self-proclaimed glory, continued her relentless campaign of public posturing and private belittling. She swanned through the office, a confident smile plastered on her face, occasionally pausing to make a show of checking in on her team. She presented an updated timeline for Project Nova, accelerating the launch date even further, completely unaware of the catastrophe lurking within its code. She frequently held impromptu check-ins, not to genuinely gauge progress, but to parade Isabella around. Subtly implying Isabella was now handling real strategic work, while I was relegated to minor technical details. Valerie would often lean over my desk, a smirk playing on her lips, and ask me directly, "Everything holding up, Chloe? No more unqualified insights." Her tone was always laced with sarcasm, a constant reminder of her public insult. I would simply nod, my expression unreadable, my gaze steady. "Everything is proceeding as planned, Valerie," I would calmly reply, my voice even, allowing her to believe she was still in control, still the undisputed authority. I observed her interactions with the senior leadership team. She was charming them, painting a picture of a triumphant, on-schedule launch. She gesticulated grandly, pointing to charts she barely understood. She was a master of appearances, but deeply flawed in substance. She consistently avoided technical deep dives, instead relying on high-level summaries provided by her compliant subordinates, summaries that conveniently omitted any potential issues. This further solidified my conviction. She had no real understanding of the technical complexities of Project Nova, and certainly no idea of the catastrophic flaw I had discovered. Her arrogance was blinding her, making her overconfident and vulnerable. Meanwhile, I quietly continued my preparations. I compiled a secondary, highly confidential report detailing Valerie's patterns of mismanagement, her habit of taking credit for others' work, and her consistent dismissal of valid technical concerns. This report was for my eyes only, a safety net, and a weapon to be deployed if needed. I also made subtle inquiries with trusted colleagues in other departments, discreetly gathering information on any other projects Valerie had managed that had quietly underperformed or faced significant, unexplained issues. My research brain was fully engaged, and Valerie, in her overconfidence, was providing all the data I needed. The tension mounted as the final launch date for Project Nova approached. Valerie was practically radiating smugness, her steps lighter, her voice louder. She spent hours preparing for her grand presentation to the company board and key investors, where she intended to officially unveil the revolutionary platform. She had already scheduled interviews with industry magazines and was envisioning a promotion for herself, her name plastered across tech journals. She even sent out a company-wide email, praising her team's unwavering dedication, a thinly veiled attempt to claim credit for all the work, while subtly excluding me from direct mention. In her final pre-launch meeting, Valerie delivered her instructions for the launch day. "Chloe, you will be on standby in the tech support room, just in case of any minor, unforeseen issues." She waved a dismissive hand, her tone implying I would be dealing with trivial glitches, a last, petty insult. She had no idea I wouldn't be in the support room, nor would I be fixing minor glitches. I would be orchestrating her biggest downfall. I had already made my move. I subtly connected with David Chin, the hiring manager who had initially seemed kind and genuine. I scheduled a discreet meeting with him, not to complain about Valerie, but to express concerns about some technical risks I had identified in Project Nova. I presented my findings not as an accusation, but as a professional warning, showing him highly technical, undeniable data without explicitly mentioning Valerie's negligence. David, a true engineer at heart, immediately recognized the gravity of my findings. His brow furrowed as he reviewed my findings, then he leaned back, a concerned look on his face. He promised to escalate it internally, discreetly. This was the final piece of my strategy, an internal ally who would confirm my findings to senior leadership, ensuring my report couldn't be dismissed as a disgruntled employee's fabrication. The stage was now perfectly set. Valerie was about to step onto the biggest platform of her career, basking in the glow of a project destined for catastrophic failure, a failure I had meticulously documented and was now prepared to expose. She was walking straight into a trap of her own making, unknowingly activated by the very unqualified idiot she had so cruelly dismissed. The atmosphere in the grand auditorium was electric. The launch event for Project Nova was underway, attended by the entire company, key investors, and industry journalists. Valerie Hayes, radiant and confident in a tailored suit, stood on the stage, bathed in spotlights, delivering a masterful presentation. She spoke passionately about innovation, about the future of data management, and about her visionary leadership that had brought Project Nova to fruition. She was basking in the applause, already envisioning her promotion. I sat in the middle of the audience, a calm observer amidst the excited buzz, holding a single, unassuming USB drive in my hand, my heart a steady drumbeat in my chest. Valerie approached the giant screen, ready for the live demonstration of Project Nova's core functionality. And now, she announced, her voice resonating with triumph, a wide, confident smile stretching across her face, witness the power of true data optimization. With a flourish, she initiated the demo. For a few agonizing seconds, the system performed flawlessly. A wave of pride swelled through the audience, and polite applause began to ripple. Valerie's smile widened, a smug, victorious expression on her face. But then it happened. Not a crash, not a freeze, but something far more insidious. On the massive screen, the intricate data streams began to visibly corrupt. Numbers flickered wildly, charts distorted into meaningless chaos, and sensitive, simulated client information briefly appeared as gibberish, then warped into unrecognizable characters. A collective gasp swept through the room. The elegant lines of code on the diagnostic panel behind her started to flash menacingly red, an alarm blaring silently. It was a silent, creeping disaster, visually undeniable. A ripple of confusion spread through the room, quickly escalating into murmurs and hushed whispers. People exchanged bewildered glances, pointing at the screen, their faces etched with disbelief. Their applause died into stunned silence. Valerie's triumphant smile faltered, replaced by a growing horror that contorted her features. She began to tap frantically at her keyboard, her fingers dancing uselessly across the keys, her eyes darting wildly between the screen and the diagnostic panel, her face paling to an alarming white. The sophisticated data integrity system she had boasted about was failing catastrophically right before everyone's eyes. Just as a nervous murmur began to swell into outright panic, a voice from the back of the room, clear and authoritative, cut through the growing din. It was David Chin, the hiring manager I had discreetly briefed. He had stood up, his face grim, addressing the senior leadership directly. "Valerie," he called out, his voice firm, "it appears there's a critical flaw in the core algorithm's data integrity protocols. My team and I have just confirmed it. This is far more serious than a minor bug." Valerie spun around, her eyes wide with terror, her composure completely shattered. She tried to deny it, to deflect, her voice a desperate, shrill sound. "What? That's impossible. This project has been rigorously tested." Then I stood up, my voice calm but carrying through the stunned silence, commanding attention. My gaze met Valerie's, holding it steady. "It's not impossible, Valerie. It's exactly what I warned you about months ago. And what I detailed in my report this morning." I walked with purpose towards the stage, my steps firm, and connected my USB drive. I projected my screen onto the giant display, bypassing Valerie's controls with a few quick keystrokes. My report, concise and damning, instantly appeared, side-by-side comparisons of my warnings, Valerie's dismissals, and irrefutable evidence of the data corruption and vulnerability, complete with code snippets and simulation results. The report was titled simply, "Project Nova, a Systemic Failure Analysis." Valerie's face was ashen, her jaw hanging slack, her eyes wide with unadulterated fear. Her eyes darted from my calm expression to the damning report on the screen, then to the horrified faces of the board members. She lunged for the microphone, a strangled protest forming in her throat, but it was too late. Sofia Rodriguez, the head of product, now fully aware of the deception, stepped forward, taking another microphone. Her voice was sharp and resolute, addressing the entire room. "This analysis," she stated, "confirms the very concerns Ms. Miller raised weeks ago. It appears Ms. Hayes' warnings were consistently ignored. The room erupted. Investors looked furious, some already pulling out their phones. Journalists furiously scribbled notes, their cameras flashing, capturing Valerie's utter devastation. Valerie, exposed, defeated, and humiliated, looked like a deer caught in headlights, trapped in the harsh glare of public failure. Senior executives exchanged grim glances, their faces set in stone, already forming a silent verdict. Her reign of arrogance had just ended, publicly and unequivocally, by the very unqualified idiot she had sought to destroy. Security discreetly, yet firmly, escorted a sputtering, distraught Valerie off the stage, her pleas trailing off into the shocked silence, her career in tatters, her Nova project now a smoldering ruin of her own making. The revenge was chillingly precise, undeniably public, and exquisitely sweet. The fallout from the Project Nova launch was immense. Valerie Hayes was immediately terminated, her reputation in the industry irrevocably shattered. The subsequent internal investigation, fueled by my comprehensive report and further validated by independent audits, exposed a pattern of mismanagement, data manipulation, and professional misconduct that went far beyond Project Nova. Her career, built on a foundation of deceit and hubris, crumbled completely. She vanished from the tech scene, her name now a byword for corporate failure, a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms. As for me, Chloe Miller, my professional life at Ascent Innovations was swiftly and dramatically transformed. Within days, I was offered Valerie's former position as Director of Analytics, a role I accepted with quiet confidence and a renewed sense of purpose. I immediately set about leading the efforts to salvage Project Nova, implementing the critical fixes I had meticulously identified. My insights and leadership were invaluable, and with genuine collaboration from David Chin and Sofia Rodriguez, the team successfully launched a stable, secure version of the platform months later, saving the company from potential disaster and rebuilding its trust with clients. My calm demeanor, once mistaken for weakness, was now recognized as quiet strength and unwavering focus. My name, once whispered in contempt by Valerie, was now spoken with respect throughout the company. My story became a powerful testament within Ascent Innovations. Competence and integrity, no matter how quietly wielded, will always triumph over arrogance and superficiality. Valerie had underestimated my analytical mind, my resilience, and my unwavering commitment to the truth. She saw my quiet nature as weakness, my methodical approach as a lack of vision. She never understood that true power lies not in public posturing or belittling others, but in deep knowledge, meticulous preparation, and the unwavering courage to expose injustice. I learned that while betrayal can leave deep scars, it can also forge an unbreakable resolve. My journey at Ascent began with humiliation, but it culminated in a profound victory, not just for myself, but for the principles of integrity and meritocracy within the corporate world. The silence of the unqualified idiot ultimately became the loudest, most undeniable statement. And that truly was the sweetest revenge.